I'm Katie Shank. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams. This is Robby King. He's my partner at Atlanta Homes by Katie and Robby. And then there's Jonathan Minsk with Ameris Bank, waving. And then there's Carrie Fink with O'Kelly and Sorahan, closing attorney. So I want to update you. We've been doing these calls for the last 3 weeks and or these Zoom events. And we want to update you on what's gone on the last week in real estate with the pandemic and the changes. And so if anybody has questions either on Facebook, or please join our Zoom call because we can see the chat room there. You know, we'd be happy to answer your questions. Just let us know. So Robby has some updates from the past week, some good numbers of what's going on in Atlanta real estate. So he'll share that now.
Yeah. So like Katie said, what we've been doing at the start of each call is just kind of giving a quick synopsis of what's happened in real estate in the last 7 days. And we've been doing these calls once a week. So we figured 7 days is a good benchmark. And it made sense for an update. So all of the numbers that I'm going to give you are stats for inside the perimeter. And we know that that's kind of a big swath and that there are lots of different little micro markets and a big sales margin within this data. But we figured that the perimeter itself is just an easy demarcation for most of us to follow. So hopefully this will make sense. So these numbers are both for both single family residences and also attached homes like condos and townhouses. And if anybody wants a copy of this file, we make a little graphic for it every week. So just let us know. We'd be happy to email it to you if you want to keep a copy of it. Okay, so the average sales price in the last 7 days inside the perimeter was $506,899. I think that's a pretty significant number to keep in mind. Yeah, this data includes, you know, Ansley Park, but it also includes College Park and East Point. So there's a broad range of home styles and home prices in this data. The average sales price is over $500,000 in the last week. I think that's kind of significant right now to keep in mind. 243 closings in the last week. So again, thinking about that average sales price and how many homes closed in the last week, I think that demonstrates that even some of the more expensive inventory is moving. And that's an encouraging statistic to keep in mind right now. So of those homes, of those 243 closed homes, the average number of days that those homes were listed as active on the market was 26 days, which I think is terrific because basically if you can sell your home within a month of listing, you're in good shape. So also going back to the sales price of over $500,000, the average sales to list price ratio was 98.33%. So again, all of these numbers are just within the last week. Anything that closed, all the 243 closed sales in the last week achieved 98% of listing price.
It's awesome.
That's kind of remarkable, I think, especially considering what's going on right now. And I know people are very anxious, but these are definitely encouraging numbers. And this is for Atlanta, this is inside the perimeter. In addition to the 243 closed sales, 226 went pending under contract. So that's good. 51 new listings were put into the FMLS database as coming soon, which that's a feature that's been in FMLS for the past several months. We didn't always have that. That's kind of newer, but this is a great way to sort of list a home that's not quite ready to list yet and give people a sneak peek. So 51 coming soon listings in the last week, 388 new listings. And out of those, so 388 new listings contributing to a grand total for the last week of total active within the last week, 4,322 total active. which seems like a very high number when you look at it compared to all these other numbers. You're like, wow. So just inside the perimeter, there's over 4,000 total active properties to sell.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to sell all those properties? Which leads me to my last number, which I think is very important to consider, and something that I like to keep an eye on, and we all like to keep an eye on if you're in the business and you know what it means, is the months of available inventory number. And this is basically kind of a measurement to decide whether or not you're currently in a seller's market or a buyer's market. So typically it's one or the other. It's very seldom right in the middle. If it was 6 to 7 months, and we talked about this on the last call a little bit, it's 6 to 7 months, you're kind of in a balanced market. If there is low inventory and high demand, then you're going to be in a seller's market. And it's been a seller's market for the last several years. Right now, our months of available inventory is nowhere near 6 or 7. It's 3.6.
Mm-hmm.
That's inside the perimeter again. I was curious to see what it was like last year around this time, because I know that we're all keeping COVID in mind and we're trying to figure out what kind of effect this is having on the market, and all these other numbers are encouraging, but I wondered what it was like last year. I know we've had crazy years where, you know, it feels like there's just not enough inventory. It's kind of still the same. So it's 3.6 for March. Last year, it was 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
Same time.
Yeah, same.
No pandemic last year. So those are my stats. I think they're encouraging. I know that there has been some shift, and Katie and I will talk a little bit more about what's going on with buyers later on in the call. But I don't know. I'm just from a realtor's perspective, it feels good to look at. It feels like we're doing okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's great. And I think seeing it the week over week, you know, comparing is very helpful to people that are, you know, tuning into us and talking with us. So this is great to see what's happening every week as we go further into this. So thank you. So Jonathan is a mortgage lender with Ameris Bank. And so he's going to give us a little update on what's happening with mortgages in the past week. And again, if anybody has any questions out there, either in Facebook land or in the Zoom, let us know, because I think I can see your comments on Facebook as well. So just ping me there if you're on Facebook.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about some stats that actually are in the last 24 hours. So for the month of April, we are projecting to close, we being Ameris Bank Mortgage, are expecting to close $953 million. So that's going to be about 1,200 units. In the last 24 hours, 554 loans have actually been submitted to underwriting. 525 loans have gone from the setup into processing, and 178 loans have gone into setup. This is just in the last 24 hours. So this is big. So we're getting loans closed on time, and we're closing purchase business in 30 days or less. So that has not changed. What has changed is some of the program guidelines. So for example, VA, and USDA loans typically have the most lenient requirements in terms of credit scores. And various lenders have, you know, at the helm of HUD and VA have raised the requirements from a credit score perspective. I've read that some lenders are going as high as 680 as the minimum credit score for FHA, 580, and now we're at 640. So that's a big jump. I think that's going to slow down some of the purchase business for FHA, VA, and USDA. But I believe that these guidelines that are being implemented now are going to go back to where they were before this whole pandemic started. So that's one thing that's changed. Also, exterior only appraisals. So just like everybody else, you know, people have a fear of people coming into their homes, you know, and with the virus. And so lenders have adapted some new guidelines that will say that instead of doing a full appraisal where the appraiser goes inside and takes pictures as well as an exterior, they're going to just say it's essentially a drive-by appraiser where the appraiser takes pictures of just the exterior and then does their due diligence to, try to get pictures of the inside based on FMLS pictures, past appraisals, etc. So I'm just going to go over a couple of programs in which a exterior only appraisal is not acceptable, and then the ones that they are acceptable. So not acceptable for cash out refinances, not acceptable for new construction, construction to perm or renovation, you still have to have a full appraisal inside and out. And then some of the second mortgages are requiring that an appraisal be done because they're taking second lien on the property. And so they want to make sure, that the value is truly there. But on a more positive note, the ones that are eligible, purchases that have an LTV of 97% or less, and LTV means loan to value. So if the borrower is putting at least 3% down and it's a purchase, then they likely will not have to do an interior inspection. Second home and investment property, if the buyer's putting 15% down or more, typically we're not going to have to do an interior inspection. And then I think I mentioned too that FHA has made some changes in terms of their credit score, but they are allowing exterior only appraisals for all purchase transactions, and then some refinances as well, depending on the loan value. So that's pretty much what's going on in the world of mortgage. And then one other thing I do want to mention too is there's only 5 private mortgage insurance companies out there. And one of the ones, and we use all 5, but one of the big ones just announced 2 days ago that they're not going to be insuring cash out refinances, and they're not going to be insuring investment properties until this is over. So there's not a huge impact because most people who buy an investment property are typically 20% down anyway, so there is no PMI.
Right.
The maximum loan to value is only 85%, so they would just need to put it down another 5%. So I don't think that's going to be or have a significant impact on investment property transactions. But it will have an impact on people that are looking to do a cash out refinance and their LTV is greater than 85%. But again, that's only one company. I haven't heard of any other companies that are following suit, but things are changing daily. So that's why we're having these calls to update everybody as to what the changes are, both good and bad. So that's it for me. So now I guess I'll turn it over to Carrie.
That's awesome, Jonathan. Thank you. And remind me what that number was in the last 24 hours of the loan number. That was impressive.
Yeah. So these are the loans that are moving from what we call one milestone to another. So loans that are in setup that are going to processing, and then processing that are going into underwriting. And my point in saying these numbers is that everything is still moving through the system as it should.
Yeah.
Just because people are working remotely, and I think more than 90% of our operations and sales staff are working remotely. We're still closing. We're having record numbers during the pandemic, and a lot of it, has to do with people financing. But people are still there buying homes as well, and so, I know Carrie will talk about how it's changed in her business because she's one that has to meet or typically has met face to face at the end, and in my part of the business, I'm probably the only person that technically never has to meet the borrower face-to-face due to technology. So I think we're all learning how to do our businesses in a way that is different and still get the job done and, and still meet our deadlines and our guidelines. So
that's awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. So yeah, now we'll hear from Carrie. Thanks. So this is literally in order. So, first Robby and I find the house or list the house. And then there's a loan. Jonathan handles that. And then it gets to Carrie, which is the most fun part typically, right? We get to go to the closing. So, that's changed a little bit, and she'll speak to what that's like now, but also the activity level that she's having in her closing office.
Yeah, so similar in the vein that what Jonathan was saying, people are still closing. It's still a great time to sell or purchase, and business is not gone. Business is still there, but business is affected by COVID or whatever we're calling it now. But it's definitely affected my role, and in my role in multiple ways. So the first way is the ability to insure. So my job as the closing attorney is, once there's a contract, I work with the lender to get all the documents prepared, but I also insure marketable title. And marketable title means that a title insurance company in the state of Georgia will insure the property, that there's no liens or judgments. And so when a courthouse is closed, which a lot of courthouses are either intermittently or sometimes for a little bit of a longer stretch closed, we have the first problem of being able to pull that title. But we're able to go around this. So although a courthouse being closed may at first seem like a hurdle, that's not something you're able to get by. We're able to get by. So we're able to pull what's on the electronic court records, and then speak with title insurance underwriters, get owner's title policies. There's various things that we can do to still be able to close. So that's one hurdle, the fact that the courts are closed and we're not able to pull title, that we're able to work through. The second issue is recording. If these courthouses are closed, how can we record? Well, a lot of them now have e-recording. So that is also an issue that we're kind of able to go about in most cases. So, with these courthouses being closed, I know a lot of people think that, everything is shut down, but we're able, in the most part, I would say 99% of closings we're doing, we are still able to close and on time. And especially with the lenders, they are also in gear. We are getting things done. We are in no way in a stalemate. Lastly, it's the safety issues of how can I close? Okay, great. Jonathan can rush my loan through after Katie and Robby found me a great house, but do I have to go to closing? I don't want to sit there and have to see me, across from the table. Well, we're also taking every step we can to not only protect my staff, but protect the buyers, the sellers, everyone who is involved in the transaction. So we're offering powers of attorney free of charge. So my firm, if your lender agrees, then title insurance underwriters agree, we are happy to act as your power of attorney and go sign those documents for you. After we send them to you, a Zoom call just like this, I go over every single document, I answer any questions, and only after you give me that final approval will I sign to say, hey, we're comfortable with this. Same thing with another attorney's office. They can sign as your power of attorney. Again, would not sign unless they go over all the documents with you and confirm that you're comfortable doing so. We also have curbside closings where we have a little fountain outside my office. So we'll send you the documents ahead of time. You'll go over them with me through a Zoom call or a regular phone call. And then once you feel comfortable, you come here to my office and we sign you in your car so you never have to leave. There's still the traditional closings. You're also welcome to come to our office. We're sanitizing everything, taking all those necessary precautions. And finally, the state of Georgia and the state bar have allowed for remote closings. And what that means is, just like we're, audio-visual capability here, we can do a notarization of documents through this interaction. So if we either email or courier the documents to the buyer or the seller, they will sign them through a call like this. I will watch them sign, and then a courier or overnight FedEx, if it is the prior day that we're able to get those documents, once they get to me, then I can notarize and we'll have a witness. So there's good chances that no one even has to come into the office to close. So if that's someone's fear, I would say that is not something that should hold up these processes because we can get it done, and we're getting it done. People seem really happy with the measures we're taking to make it not only convenient but safe. So
that's awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie. And I know Robby and I had a closing last week. Was that last week? Yes. And
Yeah.
It wasn't at your firm, but it was at another attorney. Sometimes we don't have a choice of the attorney, so another local attorney, and they were doing all similar things, and our buyers chose to go, in person and sign, and they said it was safe and nice. The biggest change for us is that we can't attend it just because they don't want you know, a bunch of people in the room that aren't necessary. So we hate that, but
We're being uninvited to closings
we're
lately.
being uninvited to closings, but we can do
Fine
a
and
Facebook
necessary.
Live. We can not Facebook Live. We can do FaceTime during the closing. You can
Yeah.
take pictures for us. We can still make it, you know, fun. We can deliver your champagne in a delivery format.
And that closing was Jonathan's loan, and I mean we could have closed early on that one, honestly.
Yeah,
I was ready to go.
I was ready to go. It was a great experience. So that's the thing. We've got, you know, we've had closings during this pandemic. We have several more coming this month, and honestly, one today was just pushed up a day early because everything is ready to go, and they were like, "Why are we waiting? Let's go ahead and do this." And you know, also we work with so many different vendors. There's so many, you know, parts, the contract and the closing is so many moving parts. So literally movers, we've been talking with movers. We may have a moving company come on 1 week. Home inspectors, last week we had a home inspector representative on here. Insurance people, I mean, everything you can think of that has to do with stagers. I'm hoping to have a home stager come on. So, you know, every week we're talking about various things, but you know, there's buyers and sellers, and we're all still working together to get things done. We're also using virtual tours now, 3D virtual tours for our listings. So in many instances, people don't have to go inside the home anymore. And a lot of times the homes are vacant too, so they may even be more comfortable. So there's just so many different ways of, you know, getting around some of these issues, if you will, that have come up in the last few weeks to keep everybody safe, but keep everybody literally still moving, because so many people need to continue to move their life. You know, people are relocating. Carrie said she had a closing this week, I think, from somebody who was moving here from Seattle, who chose to fly in. Of course, I mean, they're moving here, but they had to come in town to sign their documents, and then
They chose
their house, right?
They chose to fly in to sign traditional in-office closing.
Yeah, so that's still happening. So so we're here just to answer, you know, any of these questions, you know, any of you're wondering what's going on with the market, but also how we're actually working. Like, you know, real estate is still an essential business here in Atlanta, and we hope it will continue to be through this pandemic. And we're just here to help, and we're available through Zoom, through FaceTime, you know, all the ways. We have lots of hand wipes, thanks to Jonathan. I received 25 packs. I should have brought one here. I have 25 packs of hand wipes now, that if Robby and I do come to your home or take you to see a home or whatever, we'll of course be 6 feet away.
Yeah, we got you covered.
Throw you a pack of hand wipes, you know, and it's another thing that we're offering. You know, I have booties for our listings, you know, all kinds of safety precautions are being taken if you or someone you know is in a position to look at a home or to list their home right now. So
I just have something to add to what Carrie said. I'm starting to get the phone calls from people who are under contract saying, can we move the closing up? Because everybody's really uncertain. All of a sudden, this all just going to shut down. And I think, you know, hearing her talk about the options that are available, those options aren't going to go away. So the answer is you can move the closing up, you know, if time allows and everything's ready to go. But it's not necessary that you do. You know, and until information comes out that says otherwise, I tell people that, yeah, that you can if you really want to, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, that's great to know too, because when Robby and I have a buyer or seller and we have contracts and we have very specific, you know, timelines and deadlines we have to go through in each phase of the contract. You know, we don't want to just start throwing out random dates here and there and moving things around. We try to keep the schedule for everybody's benefit. So like I said, we've been able to do that over this has really now kind of gone on almost a month. And so for the last month, we've been able to maintain all our contracts and deadlines. And like I said, maybe somebody closed a day early. That's not a big deal, but you know, we're working within the timelines because everybody's working together to still get it done. There's no stopping that part. So that's great.
Yeah, we're all in it together.
We're all in it together. That's the hashtag, everybody, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't see any other specific questions right now. I know that we have another really great chart that we saw this week that came out. Who did that? Was it National Association of Realtors that did the chart?
This was keeping current matters. Oh yeah, no, it was an NAR chart, I think.
NAR chart, yeah, I think that, yeah, they shared.
Yeah, it was NAR.
So we love stats. Robby especially loves stats. He's a stat guy. So we have, some of those stats so we can share, and also any documents like that we can, we upload into the Zoom, or we can also potentially, I guess, upload onto Facebook. This is our first Facebook Live, so we don't know about that, but we can definitely email them to you directly, or text them, or do a call with you one-on-one if you wanted more information. But everything we reference, we have documentation for that we can share with you.
Oh yeah, happy to.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm going to try to share my screen because I have this chart pulled up.
Oh, good. It's a
I'm
really good chart. That's, not too many numbers, more good information. Yeah.
Moves, can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it. I can see it.
It's the NAR chart.
Yes, the NAR chart.
So this is something that was interesting to us. So basically, there's a survey that the National Association of Realtors put out to buyers. That's just basically asking the question, are you still looking to buy a home given the COVID-19 pandemic? 35% of people said, I don't know, I'm still keeping an eye on the market. 22% said, no, I'm not, I'm pushing pause. I'm gonna stop searching right now and wait for this to be over. 19% said, yes, I'm determined to find the right property. I can't really put my plans on hold. Maybe they've had these plans for a long time and they're not going to stop because of this. 18% said, I still am. I'm just not quite as active as I was a few weeks ago. And 6% is sort of like, I don't know. I'm not really searching for the time being. I don't know what's going to happen. So there's lots of different ways to look at numbers and to decipher them and to interpret them. But what this means to a realtor who is constantly looking at numbers and constantly deciphering them and interpreting them is that people are still looking. So let's think about this. If you take all those numbers into consideration, what you can deduce is that 62% of consumers that were surveyed are still continuing their search for real estate. That's not 100%, that's 62%. But I have a couple of thoughts about that, which I'll share. But 37% of those are very active. 59% will buy their home within the next 12 months. And 51% of agents have either seen no change, an increased interest, or a significant increase in interest in their market since COVID-19. In our particular market, that's kind of what we talked about at the top of the call, was what we're seeing in our market so far, which are still healthy numbers. 72% of agents have seen the number of homes on the market either show no change, an increase, or a significant increase since COVID-19. So I think there's a couple of takeaways that are my interpretation. One, I think we're in springtime, and a spring market is a spring market, and people hitting the ground running in a spring market that's kind of a hard train to stop for the most part, even during what is, inarguably kind of a scary time. It's a worldwide pandemic and it's scary, but people's lives are still pushing forward for the most part. So 72% of agents seeing homes on the market show no change or increasing or significant increase, and 62% of buyers still continuing to search for real estate, even despite all this craziness that's going on. It is pretty encouraging. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a change. That's not 100% of buyers, but 62% is nothing to sneeze at. And especially in our market, given the numbers that we talked about earlier, with the years and years long shortage of inventory, so it's like there's two ways to look at it. There's years and years long shortage of inventory, which means that it's still a seller's market. So if you were going to sell your house, if last July you were like, I'm going to put my house on the market, and now all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't know if I should. I'm like, yes, do.
Mhm.
Don't interrupt your plans because there are still plenty of people who are searching and actively searching. So don't interrupt your plans. This is still a very strong market for you to sell your house in.